So it was clear to me that people were interested.
That's neat. It must be cool to have that kind of ability to show it in your columns before you put it in a book so that you can see how people react.
Yeah, it was interesting, and the reaction to the columns and the book was a little bit different because when the columns came out, the economy was still booming, and everyone was feeling economically comfortable, and so there was a story that people read about of people in need, of others in need, and they really helped out a lot. New York Times readers donated a lot. They sent soccer balls and equipment to the program, and I really heard from a lot of readers who really wanted to get involved. By the time the book came out in 2009, the economy had imploded. And it was very interesting because there was almost a sort of resistance. People were almost too worried about themselves to worry too much about other people. It was almost like they didn't want to hear it. And that subsided a little bit over time, fortunately. But when the book initially came out, it was a very different world that I was telling the story to than the world that I told the newspaper articles to.
Do you think the people that read the book felt differently about the story than the people who read your columns?
That's a good question. I don't think I know the answer to that. I think that the times were different. I think that people felt different about themselves and their ability to help out. In 2007, when the stories appeared, people wanted to donate $100. They just clicked on their credit card and on the internet and gave $100. In 2009, that was a harder thing for people to do. So now people still volunteered, and I've heard from a lot of volunteers, a lot of people who worked in nonprofits who give of themselves in extraordinary ways that are not just financial. But it was just a very interesting thing from a storyteller's point of view that you learn that it's not just the story; it's the context that you're telling the story in. And so I had an opportunity to sort of tell a version of the story two different ways or two different times in completely different contexts and environments, and the reactions were somewhat different. And the difference, fortunately, with a book lasts, and a newspaper article is gone within a day or two. So one of the great things about the book is that it's come out in paperback. It's still around. Colleges still assign it. I get emails from people who just heard about it yet, this week. So books have a different sort of trajectory than an article. An article is sort of boom, it's all there one day and then it's gone. And a book is more sort of gradual and sort of trickles out. And you hope that it finds a life of its own and finds a way to survive. And I think this book has.
Yeah, it has. Because I've even talked to people my age who have read the book and enjoyed it.
That's great. I love to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, when you were in Atlanta, how did you find out about Outcast United?
So I was just giving a talk in Atlanta about Rammer Jammer, and one of the I believe that the fellow was in the audience at some point, but it was someone that knew I was going to be in Atlanta. Had read Rammer Jammer, liked it. We decided to get a hamburger, and we were going to talk about college football. And I asked him what he did for a living, and he said, well, I work with refugees. I resettle refugees from around the world. I help them make new lives in this country. And I was just very curious about what that process was like. I wanted to understand what he did when he showed up every day for work at 9 a.m. when you're resettling a refugee family. How do you begin that process? I was curious about what the refugees were going through. I was curious about how it was working out, resettling refugees from around the world in a small southern town. And so it was just this casual conversation with someone who later became a good friend that sort of tapped into my curiosity. And then I guess that's what reporters do. When you become curious, you just dive in and try to learn as much as you can.
That's really cool. Because I've never done anything like that. So to hear about it's really cool.
Well, that's what makes being a reporter fun, and it's exciting because you're always throwing yourself into situations where you don't know everything. You might not know anything, and it's almost like it's like being involved in a mystery. You've got to figure it out. You've got to understand all the complexities of the situation that you're going to be writing about, and you get to talk to people. And what's interesting, the thing that I like the most about it, is that people, for the most part, want to talk. If you're a reporter and you ask someone about their community or about their lives, for the most part, they want to answer. I've had very few times in my life as a reporter where people have said, "Go away, I'm not interested in talking to you." It happens, but it's most of the time people would rather tell their story. And I think that gets to this question of what storytelling is all about. And storytelling to me is a way of sort of communicating who we are to other people. And so I strongly believe that people want to be understood. People want to be ideally appreciated. They want others to get their point of view. So they're willing to open up and reveal private things about themselves to reporters or anyone else who might ask. And that's where reporters get their best material.
When you started writing that, did you think about putting it in your columns? Like, was that your original reason for doing that?
Actually, I was just curious. I wasn't thinking too much about what format I would write about the town of Clarkston in. I quickly figured out that it was complicated enough and rich enough, and there were enough characters that it could certainly support a book.
Okay. When you were a kid, what was it like living in Birmingham?
Yeah. Well, Birmingham was different. I feel like Birmingham had, and maybe this is just my perspective because I was young, but it felt like there was a lot more going on in certain ways. There were still a lot of big companies that were located in Birmingham. Downtown, there were things to do. There's a great bookstore in downtown that I used to go to. 5 Points South used to be this really sort of cool happening neighborhood that we'd all go to and go to the music festivals. And so I think the big change from my high school years to now is Birmingham is just sort of spread out, and it's gone into the suburbs, all into Shelby County. And when I was a kid, Shelby County was sort of undeveloped. And now it's where probably as many people live in the city of Birmingham. And that was definitely not the case. So it was a more concentrated place, and that meant that you saw people more. And I think it seemed to have a little bit more of a center than Birmingham does now. And so, I wonder if Birmingham hasn't lost a little something in that process.
It probably has.
It feels that way to me, but I don't want to impose my view of it on other people. I mean, if you're growing up in Birmingham now and you never knew it any other way, well, it is what it is. It must seem great, but I like cities. That's why I live in New York. I liked
me too.
The fact that when when I was a kid, and you go down to the South Side, there were always music festivals and cool things going on. It just seemed like the place where everyone congregated, and downtown Birmingham still, had some activity. And now, and I think, by the way, the railroad reservation park in downtown Birmingham is a great and much needed kind of jewel for the city. I think it really needed something positive to anchor downtown.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
There's nothing going on.
That parking lot. Who? Mary, my cousin. Anyway.
Alright, well, I think that's all I need for right now.
Okay, well, if you have some follow-ups, happy to help out. And I'm just flattered by your interest. I'm flattered that I made the cut for your project. It's exciting.
My teacher was really excited when she found somebody who meant more than just singing silly songs.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that, and I just appreciate all the support and positive energy y'all have sent me for the last few years, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Hope to see you soon.
And let's stay in touch about your trip. I'm going to put it on my calendar that you're going to be here.
Let's do
and we'll
it.
just stay in touch over Facebook.